Hello everyone, I'm your host MX2, and in this video we'll be going over the process I used in modeling this piston. So for this I wanted to basically model it trying to adhere somewhat to the reference image, so I tried to resist all my urges to add additional detail to it. However, we see that I still couldn't resist the urge to add a few circles in on the side. And then we put this little doohickey here a little too close to the top, which was fun in order to solve, just to make it a little problematic, just like the concept image. And that was basically it. We also added a bottom to it, so it's similar to what we were looking at here. Get off my computer, cat. Alright, and then over here we actually have two that are basically already assembled and already fully applied, so that way they can be quickly plopped in without having to apply everything. Like this one is still broken apart, so we can still make adjustments if needed. I still try to keep somewhat a type of proceduralism whenever it comes to working with this, so that is basically it for the piston, and that is part of the process I'll be showing today. And the second part is the chassis in the middle, which we left off before as something blank. This cube doesn't actually need to be there anymore, but this is what the pistons will be connected to in addition to the parts on the side. So this was something that initially was something less detailed. If I open up that version, we can see what we were starting off with. And this was what we were starting off with before we jumped into solving it. In fact, prior to actually jumping into that, we had a lesser iteration that needed to have a few edits made just for us to get it even to this stage. So that is something you'll also be seeing. But that's about it for the introduction. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. As Matthew McConaughey would say, all right. So let us get in here. Today I wanted to do the piston. And the piston was one that, when I look at the shape, I just see hallucinations in the shape. I see all sorts of things that aren't really there. Or maybe they are there. I mean, the concept artist was just scribbling for all I know. Every scribble could mean another 15 minutes of modeling. Just a single scribble, just a scratch, just a stray droplet, a pixel, just a stray pixel can result in an additional 15 minutes of modeling. I jest, of course, but I mean, that's what I'm thinking when I'm messing with it. If nSolve looks exactly the same as yours, that is great. That is great. That is our goal. But anyways, we are getting in here and just adding these parts, and my problem is that I tend to get a little detailed with the pedantic, right? Like, this area is so small and so insignificant, but yet I spend the majority of this video going over this area and refining it, which isn't a big deal, but it just goes to show that I just love the small stuff and sweat the big stuff. Which it should maybe be the other way around. I should flip that, but it just goes to show how I'm oriented whenever it comes to detail. So, I'm just kind of just messing around, just kind of getting a feel for things, just coming up with a game plan, looking at the part, just kind of coming to terms with what I'm seeing in the hallucinations, right? Because they're just little scratches and pixels. Like, seriously, I'm looking at it in retrospect now, and it's even more impressive what I was able to basically pull out of it. But of course, at some point I always just kind of just fall back to being myself, which means I will just kind of do these isms where I just do what I do to meshes, right? To just add detail to them, right? And I got to stop that. I got to evaluate those choices, or at the very least start applying a sense of design to those choices. So here I'm testing out joint exact, which joint exact is one of those things that every year we give it a revisit just to make it work a little bit better. But exact itself has its own demons that works against us. So I wanted to take a moment to just talk about, in this video, in the original video, I took a moment to stop and talk about basically dissecting booleans, right? Because, and also my key display was crashing. There's always something happening outside of a computer, and that's one of the things that's probably going to make it impossible for us to compete against AI, right? Is we have so many interoperability issues and glitches and bugs on our side made from human error that the robots are just going to just have a one-sided fist fight with us because they will be able to get it just right. Except they won't be able to get it right either. Their work's based off of our work, and we're perfect, so they're probably doomed to fail to begin with. So here I'm showing how the hops helper can be useful for dealing with the modifiers as well and dealing with it. But really the answer was one modifier needed to be exact, and if it's not exact, it's not going to work. So me thinking, hey, you know, it'd be cool, make this integrate by adding a piece cut in here and then just adjusting it to just be a little unique, and that'll work out surely. And then I put a cylinder on top of that because I'm a hack, right? So, and anytime I say hack now, I'm always thinking of the hack card in Balatro. I'm still obsessed with that game. Even though I literally gave a buddy of mine a copy of the game, he beat it immediately. He just defeated the hell out of the game. He's like, okay, I'm done with the game. I'm not playing anymore. He's just like, he's done. He's like, I got my cousin playing it now. You beat the game. Man, I haven't survived more than 5 hands. I just suck at poker, guys. But in any case, I take a moment to also talk about how just not setting my origin in Boxcutter to be initial centered just always comes back to haunt me whenever it comes to scaling these things down. But also a little prep work whenever it comes to preparing for these things to be applied as modifiers just goes a little bit of a ways. I mean, you could let the mesh be whatever Blender gives you, but really you don't want that. So I put a few guidance edges in there. You know, really the game is about just control and form and just getting to the goal without, you know, being inundated with too much geometry, right? So if I jumped in here and I immediately hit it with the bevel and just had the bevel leveling this thing up, of course it will look beautiful as I'm working on it because as I cut into it, detail is happening. But the alternative is building it up, making it proper, taking it to prom. I don't even know how. That's probably not even the best term. Probably inappropriate. But you know, we're building up these meshes to take them to the big show, right? And unfortunately, that show's a Diddy party. But we are building it up to take it to that big show. And so we're purdying up the mesh. You know, that part at the end, that delayed gratification of hitting it with the subdivision and seeing the subdivision worked out. I love it. I love it. I don't know. It's like a horror movie to me because sometimes I get a jump scare, right? I get hit by Crookshanks or whoever the horror villain is, Inshanks, Gone Shanks. I don't know. I can't think on my feet. I gotta, you know, I do best when I'm cooking with AI for 8 to 12 hours, which is how I reward myself when I complete these big modeling tasks. You know, I'm like, all right, I've earned a little bit of time to see how AI is destroying the world. So with this piece, I was done, but I was like, you know, what'd be cool is if I just put a circle in it, just a circle in the middle of it. You know, a little EM macro. Like sometimes I will be talking with AR and he will ask me, he's like, who's using these tools? And I literally have zero response. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? I requested every single thing in this tool. I use it all. There isn't a version of Hops where we have none of these features. I use them all. And you see me in these videos using them all. From B-weight to basically the Boolean helper. I mean, the most obscure things, to a little bit of hops, to a little hops dots, to hop shapes. I mean, all of it. Because it's all integrated into my brain as like problem solving, right? Like I'm like seeing a part, I'm like, ooh, how can I solve this? I'm like, ooh, I could drop in this shape, I could do this, I could QOT this thing, I could hit it with this, I could hit it with that. Hit this thing with the baseball bat. Sorry. Still in song mode, but yeah, we just get in there and, you know, the problem solving comes from repetition. So, you know, one of the earliest complaints of HardOps that impacted me and, you know, changed me over time was people complaining about it changing all the time. And, you know, the goal was never to make a tool that would be changing all the time. So, you know, I'm happy now that things are so stable that people are like, where is the next thing? Obviously that next thing's nSolve, but also, you know, people are like, what is that next thing? And, you know, it's important that the tool is stable so that tutorials are consistent, that everyone's tutorials consistent, that people aren't having to remake tutorials and all that stuff. However, knowledge does become outdated. I mean, you might notice over time that I am less of a sharpener, right? Like I don't sharpen as much as I used to. Instead, I tend to use auto smooth, and that's because auto smooth has become so dominating in Blender. And there's actually a new update now with it having control over normals that I think is going to make normals even more controllable on a procedural level. So I'm real excited for it as far as what the future holds for it. You know me, it takes me a moment to get creative with such things, but once these things are in our toolbox, then they become part of the lore, you know. So in any case, now we're on to solving, which this piece was a fun little solve. Like I said in previous videos, you know, solving, when I first decided, like, hey, I'm going to start just doing geometry right. Like, it's the end game now. It's the end game now. So I got to start doing geometry right. So that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing me do geometry right because, you know, I got away with ingons for so long. However, I can tell you from experience that clients are always like, yo, this geometry, yo, am I paying you in counterfeit money? I don't know. If that has ever happened to you, let me know, because I feel like that's like a popular statement for people to make when they receive in-God geometry. They're like, hey, did my check bounce? It's like, wait, no, come on, look. And then you have to explain to them, like, hey, look, this geometry on a planar level, optimal. It's optimal, bro. Instead, you know, correcto. The next spot of the arc. In fact, once I'm done with all this music about the hypothetical wasteland king and him turning into the king who ends up fighting against the rabbit god of death, blah blah blah, I'll be focused on this robot D3 who will end up becoming dukes, and that will be a story you'll hear me talking about for 100,000 videos unless I die randomly. I mean, which happens, you know, people randomly die, happens all the time. So, receiving messages as always on the old anxiety watch. You know, my fault though. You know, it's like tug of war, right? I ask for these wars, right? I send messages and then I start recording videos and then I complain about the messages I get during the videos because I requested them. So, solving. I want to hit sim so bad. You know, symmetry is just, it's nice. It's a convenience, right? But one of the kind of things I want to do on this one, I was like, you know, if it's asymmetrical, be asymmetrical. Just do it, you know. It's nothing. In fact, it'll help your design to begin breaking your symmetry. But that's a talk for another day. Me, I'm just a man of convenience, right? Gotta line up that serendipity so at the end of the day, I'm sipping a latte by, I don't know. I don't even sip lattes. I'm a gin man myself. I love gin. Right here, I use rotate edge, so that way I can turn those into quads, and I rotate edge there. You know, rotate edge is so rarely used, but that time it did get a little bit of play, which was fine. The good thing about this video is this one is a longer video, because after this, I was pretty fired up still. So, you know, I ended up coming back and doing the chassis because can't stop, won't stop. Probably shouldn't reference P. Diddy anymore, right? But in any case, we are just creating a situation where grid fill will just work out for us, and we'll just use traditional grid fill. And of course, I should do some inner extrudes with this piece in the middle to just bring it in, but I'm just analyzing the pinching that's happening up there because I'm trying to hold a perimeter, but it's also a very strict area. So, you know, the choices that I made there, I'm not even entirely pleased with. But in any case, we're going to do another EM macro and then use offset in order to drag those, do a little bit of edge consolidation, just to kind of create something here visually, just to, you know, grab that AO. You know, I'm always trying to create something just so great, so fun. So whenever I'm in the texturing and I look at it in the AO view, I'm just like, pow, you know, and that's where the cut lines and the creases come in. Got to get that gotta get that AO action happening, and also that bevel richness, you know, with the bevel edge shader. You know, I've been meaning to actually get in and play with that in Marmoset, but I think Marmoset ended up being pricey on their latest update, and I was just like, yowzers, they want how much? And they're probably gonna ask for this next year. Rich, I'll be back. So, solving these areas, you know, and what's fun is I get to see in retrospect double because I'm recording over recording over recording, where I am basically reviewing the consequences of every cut. And so if you're watching this video, you should be seeing that too. Like, you know, every cut has consequences, and you know, you should be especially mindful of the situations where the geometry is just utterly rubbish, like from the exact modifier, because these are things that we try to ignore, right? Like, you know, procedural gem will try to just keep all the modifiers live, and just one exact in his stack. Hey, one exact in his stack. Boy, I'm writing rhymes today. Call me Buster Mesh. Just kidding. But one mistake in the mesh will just send it all haywire, and I don't know. I need a modifier for that, actually. I just realized that a modifier could exist for that. Like, I just thought of it in my head. It would be made out of geometry nodes. It would highlight the mesh red based on mesh error. It'd be a mesh error node that you would scroll up and down the stack. I see it in my head clear as day, and I could make it myself. I see it. I see it, I see it. And I mean, that's what it is to me. Like, this is like being in that exposition room on TV shows where it's like, man, when they said so and so to me, I wanted to fight them during lunch. You know, this is my exposition room where I get to talk about my innermost feelings, right? About meshes and modeling and things, and sometimes more than that, sometimes too much more than that. Sometimes my girlfriend and her cooking eggs on her own and taking the power away from it. Just kidding. That's what an AI psychiatrist would say if I started writing my transcripts through AI, which is what I've been doing. It's been nuts. I'm like, oh my God, these people are gaming me. They're going to sell me shoes and coolers and my fears. Boy, you think they know a lot from what we're saying? Man, if they're not using systems to imply, I could help them design some, because I am testing some systems. Terrible future. I mean, hey, but the thing is, you know what makes your data worthless? Absolutely worthless. If you're poor, if you're a homeless bum, your data ain't worth nothing. Like, if you're living in the woods, hey, they don't care. They don't care what you like. They don't care what your fetish is. They can't sell you nothing. Like, you know, what kind of beans do you like cooking over the fire? You know, what type of knapsack do you like? What brand of oak stick do you like to suspend your goods with? That's the type of data they're getting out of bums. So, you know, once you're bummed, your data's worthless. So, and that's what our society's racing towards. Like, I was watching the NVIDIA presentation, and it was horrifying the first time, and then I watched it 2 more times with 2 different people, and it was just so crazy to see how CUDA cores became tops, and how basically we have basically paid for our own demise through like greed for gaming performance. And I mean, it may not, I don't know, it seems like that to me, because you know, they were selling us this for like rendering faster and faster, and now it's like, hey, HR is not going to be a thing anymore. Like, just start showing us CEO replacements, please. Start showing us only CEO replacements. Why are you replacing the people who are actually putting in sweat and blood and tears? People that are dying. People that are dying. These are the people that you're replacing. Show us replacing fat cats, bro. So I, for some reason, wanted this to have the same amount of points, which in retrospect is dumb. It was dumb. It was dumb to want that. Like, I don't know why I did that, but so anyway, so I'm watching an NVIDIA presentation, and they go from showing, you know, a few humans training robots, and then just a few robots in the warehouse, and then the whole warehouse taken over by robots. There's not a human in sight. Everybody's replaced. You know, you don't even need an HR department when you replace all the humans. Like, I mean, these savings become exponential over time. You know, once you start replacing so many people, like, you stop needing entire departments. Like HR, who needs it? Just replace the CEO. And what are we going to do when no one's working a company, when the companies are entirely ghost companies gaming for us? But, I didn't mean to get so dystopian in this video, but I couldn't help it. I just intended to do a section where I did talk about the NVIDIA developments, because for this GPU, I was looking at the 5090, and, my only criteria is that if the next GPU takes less power than the previous GPU, I'm all for it. Otherwise, I'm going to test them on their planned obsolescence, which I love to do. I love to force companies to update their old hardware over and over and over, and just to see if they're going to kill it. When is it going to die? Apple got a big lawsuit that said they're going to stop killing their iPhones, and as a result, I keep old iPhones because I just got to see. I got to see what update's going to kill it, because they use that as an excuse for so long, and now it's no longer an excuse. So you see these devices, and they're kind of amazing. Like, I have an iPhone 10, and the thing's just great. It's great. I mean, not great enough for me to use it, but I mean, hey, come on. Hey, iPhone 10 was a long time ago, guys. But still, an impressive device. So, I'm probably going to try the same thing, because I have the most high-end GPU of the last generation, so there's no reason for me to upgrade. Unless it uses less power, because I feel like my GPU makes a statement on the power bill, and that's just so unnecessary. Like, I need a secondary GPU to use, and then I just plug up the main GPU whenever I actually need it, because most of the time I just need it to display things on the screen. It's not like I'm maxing out the RAM, I'm just living life, just playing cards. Not even playing so many cards. Like I said, my buddy beat the game, so he kind of took the wind out of my sails. Now I gotta learn some strategy, guys. People just running poker around me. If I sat him down at a table, he'd probably take my shirt, take my girl. He'd take my table. You play poker, you end up losing furniture. Just kidding. So this area, I intentionally cut it too close to the top. I wanted it to be painful. Seriously, you would offset that, right? If you were just chilling, right? Like, if you're just trying to take it easy, you would just offset that, so that way it isn't so bad. But in my case, I wanted it to be close to the top, because in the reference image over on the side, it was just too close to the top, and I thought, hey, that's something. I'm gonna go for it. But with this piece, it was a exercise in restraint, because I kept seeing additional shapes, and I kept wanting to cut additional shapes in, and I kept wanting to modify this shape. In fact, I look at it now, and I swear, at the bottom, I think that it kind of wedges inward, and, I want to put that there. But I don't think it does, because I look at the other ones, and I don't see that. So I think it might just be a skew from the artist. Like, I don't know. I love interpreting concept art and being frustrated by it. Like, I might sound like I'm mad, but I am happy. It's a different type of mad. Like, I'm not mad at all. It's like totally cool, bro. Like, it's actually awesome. Which is the opposite of hopefully what I felt I was implying. But no, I've been like I said. I turned the page. I was flipping through the book. I got through like 3 pages. I got to that page. I was like, holy mackerel! How come I never really paid attention to this thing? Like, it's just so different than what I would normally do. Like, that was what caught my eye. Like, that was just something to it. So now we're looking at it, and things are looking good. Except that we don't have a piece on the bottom. And we could be lazy, and we could mirror it below. And also, I wanted to do a little bit of detailing. I'm always thinking about the richness of the AO. And with Subdivision, now our mesh auditor, it was pretty cruel on our result there, so I had to do an inset, get a few edges close together. Basically the control of Subdivision is the congregation of geometry. So if you want to get something tight, you bring the geometry together, and if you want it to be sparse and rounded and free, you kind of separate it a bit, right? So now at the bottom, I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, that piece ain't like the top, boss. No, I'm playing. But it isn't. It ain't lifted like the top. So I need to basically create something here. And, like I said, I need to get make checked out. It's just, it's in the queue. There's a lot of things that we're trying to get wrapped up at the same time. So it just takes time. And also nSolve's taking a moment. So sometimes I will jump into material mode and Blender will just hang. And I hate that. It just drives me crazy. So I took this moment to get my screencast keys to come back because they weren't working. And, you know, anytime I don't have screencast keys working, I feel like a war criminal. And I mean, I'm not even, never mind, I'm not even going to make that joke. But, never mind, that would be a good joke. I should just be able to make these jokes. It's Trump's America, right? No, I'm kidding. Hey, in Trump's America, people are going to be as ugly as they want to be, right? Just saying. And using a little hard loop. This moment brought to you by Hard Loop and the Loopy Boys. You know, Hard Loop doesn't get enough love from me, and it's because its icon isn't impactful enough. Like, I really need these icons to impact me. And they need to differentiate. And I mean, these are just things that are being talked about. Like, I can't let them go. You know, it has to look perfect, or I'm calling my dad. All right, you know, that old thing. So now we got to go ahead and get this area corrected. After doing a little bit of reinforcement, we'll symmetrize it for just a moment, just because we're lazy, right? Like, hey, be lazy. Be lazy when you can, if you've earned it. And now comes like the tricky areas. So this part, I wanted to really experience some pain with having these flat transitions happen into rounded areas that were of low polygonal density. And even though the results were regrettable, I managed to survive. And here we are looking at that result of me surviving. But like I said, the pinching was something that kind of bothered me, so it was something I couldn't get away from. You know, with it being so small, it's rather insignificant, so you have to question if it is that important. So I ended up redirecting that completely to be solved from a different direction, which I thought was maybe more intelligent than, you know, I was thinking. Like, look, I have an edge go from here to here, and it connects to there, and we get a result, and bada bing, bada boom, and that looks a lot better on the shading than what I was looking at initially. So sometimes just a quick little evaluation, and that's the Tetris of solving to me. Like, whenever it comes to solving, like, there's this, like I always talk about the Tetris of getting the geometry to be efficient and accepted, because when you win in meshes, you win big. When I win in cards, I just win more cards and a higher ante and eventual crushing defeat. You know, it's kind of like PUBG, right? In PUBG, you go and you pick up items, and then you get killed, and you become a gift basket for another man to filch through, which is what I say about the game every time I play. I'm like, man, someone's going to filch through me. So right there, I noticed that this little piece didn't actually make it. In fact, the cutout didn't even make it into the solve. So I had a moral choice to make that was about 3 seconds long, where I was like, should I fix this or pretend like I don't even see that and jump to the end of the video? And the answer, of course, is A, what corners am I going to choose to cut? I'm gonna cut the corners that matter, the corners that really hurt. I'm not going to just die over a measly nonsense corner. In fact, let's bisect split this thing and get in here and focus back on it. And we just want to do a few just small corrections to get this sewed up. And the more I solve, the more that these combinations become familiar, and the quicker each solve becomes. So sure would be great if someone automated that into a web platform. Just kidding. But here, we're going to take this cutter from the cutters, and we're going to cut this inside. And even better than just cut it inside, we're going to disable subdivision, and we're going to make edits to the mesh in order to make it easier for us to do this solve. Where normally this solve would be us adding a bunch of loops, we're just going to put the loops on the cutter and call it a day. And this area was pretty fun, except for the part where I noticed that verti mergy and its very small parameter up top caused me to eat some geometry here, dissecting and disintegrating some corners. And look, it happened in a lot of areas, and I had another moral dilemma. I was like, should I ignore this and just go on and just pretend like I don't see that? But like I said, the corners that you cut, which corners are you going to cut? I'm not going to cut the corners that lessen the worth of the model. So we got to go on and just continue on refining things and get things cleaned up and fix any problems where we see them, like a good citizen. You know, we're citizen defenders now. We protect our city like Phoenix Wright. I think that was his name. No, maybe it was Phoenix Justice. I forgot. He was like a Seattle superhero that I think he got caught being on drugs, actually, while he was supposed to be on the street, stopping them. Go figure. That's America for you. Live long enough to become the villain. Anyway, so now comes the part where we stitch this all together. And that stitch job was not a perfect stitch job. And the fact that I had to offset it in the opposite direction to get that to work just went to show me that there was something going on there that I need to address. Probably flip normals or something, but I'm just not hypersensitive to it yet. But, you know, when I am messing with join and its new extendo line capabilities, I'm always thinking about how to resolve any bugs that come up with it. So, you know, having to drag it the opposite way sometimes in certain situations, like when you're looking at an inverted face on the inside negatively, I don't know, just it's one of those battles we fight. So now that that is solved, now I can duplicate it over, except I forgot that I had control period move origin on instead of move object. So now I finally turned that crap off, and we're going to apply only the mirrors using batch operations. Batch operations is fantastic. You just do things in a batch. And for that, I'm going to create my large piston and my small piston, and we finally get to the end of this particular segment. And now for the next one. God, who wrote this script? Alright, fine, I'll read it. Bonus video. What? Okay, so they're saying to use more spirit. Bonus video. Okay, they're saying that works. Okay, guys. So, in an additional video, I wanted to go ahead and detail the chassis that these connect to. I mean, I don't know if it's a chassis. That's just what I'm calling it. But you just have to name stuff things. So, I want to go in, give these pistons a name, and then, you know, start doing a little bit of collection cleanup to just try to get things manageable. So here we're looking at the Mac. Got to move this one down. You know, we're building everything out of collection instances, so that way it's a little bit simpler to deal with, just because it's beginning to get a little unruly. But this piece in the middle stops me from going upstairs, right? So I kind of freestyled on it myself, which resulted in the piece looking less adequate than the concept art. So it just goes to show that the difference between me and concept art is I'm a bit linear. And, you know, these are just battles I'm always fighting, but, you know, identification is the first step in you know, making progress in these sort of things, and being realistic with yourself, of course, right? So, you know, I'm looking at the concept, I'm looking at myself, and I'm asking myself these questions deeply, like, what does it take for me to just kind of get that feeling that someone has whenever they stroke a pen across a surface? Because obviously they're having a much funner time than me, just kidding. But they do have a form to them that I just love, and I want that. So I'm getting in here and I'm just making changes accordingly to just try to get it to just be a little bit more rounded and kind of gentle. So I figured I would make a few adjustments and just set things up, and that would result in a much more interesting solve time. It also resulted in this being a hell of a solve. Like, I was going to get in here, and right here I made a mistake, but I'm not sure what mistake I made. So I begin troubleshooting, right? I modifier scroll, and I see that the second modifier is the one that didn't work out. So I start making changes to the geometry and going through these modifiers one by one. Of course, talking about how if you turn off render visibility, you can have the modifier remain on even during scroll, which is what I did with auto smooth. But troubleshooting is a major part of dealing with HardOps and Boxcutter, because problems will happen. They will happen. They will happen from your ambition, from your hubris, from your desire for more geometrically, right? You'll be like, I want one more boolean. I want one more boolean. And that error was a curious error, because I was talking about it and I couldn't explain how it happened. And so, sometimes Blender, I test Blender on the daily builds, like the most up to date daily builds, because it's fun. It's like an additional modifier. And if Blender is going to be stable as a rock and never crash, then it doesn't matter what version I'm using, except for the part where Blender complains all the time about using old files. You open an old file, a new file in an old Blender, and they're like, yo, I don't know what this is. What Blender is this? I ain't opening this. 3.6. You're a goat. You survive 3.6. I could talk about you so lovingly, but in any case, we got to continue. So we apply everything. We turn off the remove modifiers in the F9 of the clear sharps, just because we don't ever want that. I should just make that a default. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just start looping. I'm going to just start adding loops, loop-de-looping, like Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog, he hits some loops, and I'm like, wait, no, let's not do that. Let's be smart. Let's put in edges. And then I'm like, wait. Let's be smarter. Let's convert them into sharps. And then let's lower the bevel weight by using the sharps as a delimiter. And this is a common way of working back in the day, where basically you would lower, I'm just showing how you can customize sharpen, but mark isn't the same way. Mark in edit mode is just a kind of a Frankenstein, but still a beauty. I love mark, but mark is just a conglomeration of a series of tools just brought into one. There was a point in hops in which we sought to have a great unification of everything. I also realized that the normals were flipped. Having the mind to know, hey, troubleshoot your normals. Make sure your normals are right. I don't know how I can train that into people. I don't even know how I can train it into myself. But it is one of my troubleshooting steps, like probably the second troubleshooting step. Doubles and then normals. What else do you got? So this area shows where the Boolean just didn't work out. So if we hypothetically would have kept this live, it wouldn't have worked out. It would not have worked out. It would have been a disaster. If we would have kept it live, here's another area. I don't know what's going on there. We're just going to dissolve that. And we're just cleaning things up. So, a little move, a little, I cheated right there. I moved it, but don't tell anybody. Anytime I move the geometry, just keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody. The cat is determined to jump on the desk, which will pause the recording or something. These cats are jerks. It's 6 in the morning. It's nowhere near their time. So she can go. Like, she can leave me. The freaking bum. I wish she'd leave me alone. Freaking animals. That's what these cats are. They're freaking animals, you guys. I hate to put it that way, but they are. Yeah, get out of here, you filthy freak. Go play with your box of crap. She's still trying to jump on the desk. I'm just holding her back. And the cat does nothing on the table. All she does is walk around until something is disrupted, until a USB device is disconnected, or clawing at me. Alright. Never mind. Cat wins. The cat wins. So back to the video. Sorry. Fighting the Reds. I also wanted to basically begin listing some ideas. Like, there's some things that I want to start doing to, start working on the morale and the motivational aspect. I also want to talk about this idea for a visibility orb, where basically you draw in an orb and it would basically limit the visibility to what's inside of it. I was just being silly, but the idea just makes sense to me. Like, inside of nSolve we have all these other things, like a visibility selection orb would just be another one of those. Like, everything I'm looking at, I'm always thinking of its expansion, but I also got to hypothetically think about its expansions. So it requires that I put a little bit of thought into it and planning, just to ensure that I'm not creating dead ends. So thinking, always drinking. Which, I guess if I say that makes me sound like Mr. Leahy, right? from Trailer Park Boys, which I'm not. All I've had since I got up this morning is water. So now we are just solving and just making it match. And one of the things about this chassis piece is that serendipity was a thing all over the place. The cat is now sitting on my mouse, so if I was trying to work, I would have half of my mouse movable area because the cat just demands it. The cat just demands it. What are you staring at? She's just staring at Sonic on my desk. It's just warm. I think that's what it is. Where the mouse moves, that's the warmest area in the house. The mouse just be setting the mouse pad on fire. Sparks. And that is a song to sing about right there. Someone setting their mouse pad on fire by moving their mouse so hard to survive against the machine apocalypse. Like, even this part and the way that I was able to solve it, I just thought was rather nice, because normally the solutions have to get a little bit more intricate whenever it comes to solving, and we're just having fun here. Like I said, it's just like Tetris. A much worse Tetris, except in Tetris Forever they did an update where they added a new Tetris, and that is literally the worst Tetris I've ever seen. I don't know why they did it. I would only add Tetrises that were probably hits in some country, not Tetrises that probably caused the closure of a company or lessen the stock price of it at the very least. And looking at all those lines in the middle on that ring, it's just denser than the rest. I hope that I go in there and I clean it up, and I see that I do not, which is fine. It just means that this area gets a higher resolution, but it's totally unnecessary because this area is going to be obscured and covered up by other things. Like, it's going to get a major upper section sitting on top of it, but I am quite excited to be getting this done, because it finally means I get to move on to the upper body part of the mech, where I get to then start focusing on the other arm of terror on this thing. The first arm was quite an arm, but the second arm will make that arm look like a finger. And in the spirit of progress, I'm thinking to myself, I should try harder. I should try harder than I did before. In fact, right here, I ended up redoing this solution because I see that I should have something similar to the other area. So handling this kind of procedural allowed me to jump through it not too bad. I mean, there are so many ways I could be saving time with this. Like, I could be basically, remeshing even just parts of this, and that would calm things down. But for some reason, just computer-generated topology has a look to it that is undesirable to me. And that's not even to put AI out of a job. That is just to realistically explain that, there is a thing called edge flow, and just, teaching that to a computer is just more difficult. So this corner, absolutely destroyed. It takes me a moment to realize how destroyed it is, but in the end, I cleaned it up. But that is why join didn't work out right there. It just got weird. But now that I've dissolved and redissolved and just consolidated things, we are just making progress. And we can see that, Exact left us with a few little gifts. Anytime you try to be precise, you just got to be on the lookout for the result. If I were to give advice on using Exact Boolean, I would say use it, then apply it. Maybe apply it on a duplicate and look at your duplicate, and then from that decide if you want to keep it live or if you need to apply it and start dealing with it. But that's just me. I tend to be pretty mobile with it, but I've seen some models get pretty intricate, just kind of gambling on the serendipity of that thing just working. And also, sometimes you can just get lucky jumping between fast and exact, and one will work if not both, or one or the other. So, sometimes you get that lucky too. Building this up to maintain this flat while also being rounded, a tricky thing, but we're at the end here, so now we get to talk about it in terms of victory and being a winner, right? Because at the time I was like, ugh, what a piece. But it is of my own doing. Every cut, every wedge, every I don't even know what term to use. Every wedge, every slope, dictated by me. So I'm basically setting up all of the work that I'm having to do here. but it gets easier. It gets easier, and as I jump through it, you know, what would be worse would probably be if I would have just done all of this in the form of a blend mesh, and then from there decide to go ahead and go through this process. Then, you know, while it would be more linear, it would also be just a little bit more painful. It would just be hours and hours of just painful solving. So let's just get in and solve this. When it comes to triangles, as I always say, I'm not completely against them. I just don't want them in a transitional area. And with n-gons, I am completely against them existing in a mesh that I intend to give to someone. Just because anytime I've tried to do that, they have asked me like, hey, you smoking the dope, boy? It's like, no, not the type of dope that does that. Not the type of dope that'll screw up a mesh. I mean, you gotta be smoking some PCP for that, laced with LSD. So for this part, I'm hoping that I try to grid fill it, but I don't think I did. Maybe I did. But I also did not enable boundary, so that part also is kind of terrible. And now we begin to close this up, so just 2 grid fills away from success. And this area is a flatty underneath area that no one's going to care about. No one's going to ask like, hey, what's the geometry looking like in that under chassis, the second under chassis? No one's going to ask that. So what am I doing here? Why does it matter? I don't know. It's just about those corners and which ones you choose to cut. So we now finally get to the end of this. So I thank everyone for watching this double length video. And with that, I end, and I'll see you guys next time.
In shadows, drenched in gore, endless battles, bloodied lore. Day and night, the cries of pain awaken pools of the slain. In a world where dead is king, hope decays, no angels sing. Charlatans gathered in hollow display, promising light but leading astray. His blade now dull still finds its mark, a lone defender in a land so dark. Whispers rising, shadows call, godless throne that binds them all. Four kings rise, shadows creep, breaking spirits haunting sleep. Atrocities echo skies ablaze, lost in ruining endless haze. Rabbit's effigy, stitched in bone, flames consume but not unknown. Death's delight, a god unseen, twisted threads of a deadly scheme. What is Ark? This land of dread, a hollow throne of the nameless dead. Questions linger, blade in hand, to serve a kingdom built on sand. A shrine grotesque, a beacon bright, eyes glowing in the endless night. A voice calls out, corrupted tone, in its warmth he's not alone. A crater deep, the dead surround. Silent screams, no mortal sound. The king's resolve, a fleeting flame, caught in cycles of endless blame. Shadows whisper a final plea, a fleeting hope for eternity. Rest comes cruel in death's embrace, a fleeting peace in accursed space. The king sleeps deep, his fate unknown, lives a realm forever overrun. Overthrown. Oh, how the shrine awakens in glee as the king of darkness rises for me. His bed of gore, his cradle of dread, where corpses whisper, rise from the dead. Each step he takes, the wasteland stirs, his sword a hymn of agony that blurs. Go forth, my disciple, the shrine gods cry. Feed me the flesh of those who defy. The king storms forth with relentless might, through armies of cowards, through endless night. His slab swings wide, the wind it roars, and bodies erupt as blood decorates the floors. One soldier paused transfixed in dread, the blade sheer force rattled his head. Before he could blink, the next swing came, he burst apart, a footnote in shame. Oh, my king, my dark divine, your violence fills this shrine of mine. Each death a prayer fulfilled, in blood and ruin, my hunger stilled. Each corpse he brings, each scream I hear, my glow burns brighter, my purpose clear. This wasteland thrives on his brutal art, as he tears this cursed world apart. The East King fled his cowardice plain, the West King's cries dissolved in vain. Pile them high, I whisper deep, their flesh is mine, their souls to keep. The king digs deep, his crater expands, a shrine to destruction sculpted by hands. Organs squelch as they fall in place, an offering to me, this blood-soaked space. My disciple returns, his body worn, his blade drips red, his armor torn. I see his pain, his devotion true, this darkens all my chosen few. I glow with pride, I churn with glee, their souls combust to fuel his spree. Rest, my king, I whisper low, tomorrow awaits another show. His nightly retreat, the shrine's glow bathes him in light, God's blessing for his endless this fight.
Men, now just bricks. The goo flows deep and the land is sick.
Pistons, grains, planes,
My lord, I barely made it back alive. The wasteland's a grave where none survive. I saw 20 men slapped into bricks. Their bones crushed down, their screams still stick. 2 feet more, his fire grows tall. A monument to death that shadows us all. His hands shake as he looks away.
The goo, it's alive, pulling men astray.
They dissolve, they're gone, dragged into the ground. No bodies remain, just an eerie sound. Brick by brick, the spire climbs high. A hell of goo where the dead don't die. The land is cursed, it gapes and swells. An endless pit of living hell. I tried to fight, but the sight was too much. The land breaks men with its deathly touch. The goo, my lord, it eats the brave. It melts their souls into an unmarked grave. I saw my captain turn to paste, slapped into nothing, his body erased. My morale is gone, my will's in the dirt. How can we fight when we're made to hurt? The soldier's voice falters, his eyes turn down. The wasteland's a curse where all men drown.
Brick by brick, the spire climbs high. A hell of goo where the dead don't die.
The land is cursed, it gapes and swells. An endless pit of living hell.
The jester king listens, his anger grows. What madness is this? What horrors he shows? But as the soldier speaks, the king's rage fades, replaced by fear in the shadowed glades.
The goose alive, the men are gone. 20 bricks, their lives withdrawn. The king's voice cracks, his face turns pale. What kind of monster leaves this trail? The king and soldier retreat in fear. The shadow of the spire drawing near. They cower below in the basement's dark. The sound of slabs, a haunting mark. The goo drips closer, the soldier cries. We'll be bricks too if we don't hide. The jester king trembles, his crown askew.
Brick by brick, he's coming for you.
The room falls silent, but the slab still scrapes. A sound of doom that none escape. Brick by brick, the spire climbs high. A hell of goo where the dead don't die. The land is cursed, it gapes and swells. An endless pit of living hell.
The slabs will come, no one survives. We're all just bricks in his endless lives.